Hello and welcome to a Blender tutorial. Today we're going to edit some videos on Blender. So some of you might know what Blender is already. It's an open source project backed by many people, and they are doing some great work with the video editing part of this program. So many of you guys don't know that Blender has a video editing capability, but the truth is many don't. But it's starting to come into the light a little bit more, and I'm very happy to show you guys what I have learned in the 6 or 7 months I've been using this as my daily editor. I have used many other programs. I use Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, DaVinci Resolve as the big ones, but I really started with Windows Movie Maker. So I started something from very simple to something as complicated as Blender can be sometimes. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to walk you through on how to set up your project right. That way you can get away from those pitfalls that I have ran into as I was learning this program. So I'm going to do this one take thing. I have espresso in my hand and I'm ready to go. So why Blender? Well, it's free. And that's probably why you guys clicked on this video, because you know Blender is free. It's open source. So what that means is there's no big company overhead saying, we need to make more money. So we're going to change our model to subscription-based models. Adobe. So that's what I really like about it is, let's say all of a sudden no one wants to help Blender out or the project. Someone else could pick up those files or that code and pick it off where it left off. And that's what I really like about it is you're not stuck with one program, or you're not stuck with what one person says or one business says or company. So that's what I really like about it is the freedom of it. So let's get started. But another cool thing I found out was that you don't have to install Blender. So I'm not sure how true this is for Windows or Mac, because I don't have a Mac and I haven't had time to test it because I've really been using Linux only. By the way, if you're watching this on Windows or Mac or Linux, you can follow the tutorial because it's basically the same program for all three platforms. So no worries there. But anyway, going back to my point is what I really like about this as a professional application, because a lot of people say that Blender is for hobbyists, and that's sort of true. A lot of people have been using it as a hobby, but some people are starting to use it in professional workloads because there's a lot of versatility in it. And what I mean by that is, for example, on my Linux distro here, I don't actually have it installed. So if I search it in my, first you have to learn how to spell, but if you search it here, you won't see it here. But it's running. But if I close this, you'll see why. Because I have it extracted as a folder. This is great because if, let's say, you're running on a project and you run into a bug or an error, you can run the latest version right here, just so, and now you have the latest version. That way you can see if maybe they had a bug hotfix in the newest version, or you can go older as well. I recommend making a copy of, let's say, backup of your files, and maybe make a copy of your project file. But anyway, let's close this one because that's early alpha and that's probably somewhat buggy. But anyway, let's get started with this one. And you'll be greeted with a different window. Unfortunately, I don't know how to recreate that scenario because I already had this for 7 or 6 months. But after you set your preferences and everything, spacebar to play, the basic stuff, Blender shortcuts and whatnot, you'll be greeted with this window here. So what we're going to be doing is selecting video editing. As you can see, I already have this preset, but let's say for your case, you have the factory settings. So what you're going to do is navigate to the editing folder. This is mine right here. And now we're going to set up your rendering engine. So I have a NVIDIA GTX 1070 Ti. So I'm going to use those CUDA cores, baby. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to cycles, supported feature set, and GPU compute. So now what we have to do also, because it's faded out there, is go to edit, preferences, and system, and select CUDA core. And look, it's no longer faded. And select your GPU. I tested this, but this is way faster in my opinion. You can set up your memory undo limit, but I usually do half of the VRAM on the GPU just to be safe. That way it's not chugging or anything like that. All right, so that's all set. So now let's go into our dimensions for our scene. So this looks okay. So it's very important to have your frame rate match your video footage. So in my case, my frame rate is 60 frames per second. How you check for that is when we navigate 1 second. All right, so this is a folder. It's for my vlog episode 4, but never had enough footage to make a proper video. So that's why we're going to be guinea pigging or making this tutorial based on this footage. So if you check this footage, I have VLC. You guys should have this already installed. It's a great program. You can convert video files. There's a lot of great features in this program. But anyway, we're talking about Blender, so we just want to see what frame rate it's running at. So when you go into Tools, Media Information, and I have to open up that window again, and Codec, you can see that it's running technically 60 frames per second. So what we could do is we can change our project to this or 60. I recommend doing that. That way it's exact. So audio doesn't desync, because if you don't make it the same, the audio will desync and you'll have more issues and stuff like that. And so if you have a mix of two different frame rates on your video project, just commit to a frame rate on your project and then convert all the other ones that are not that frame rate. But in this case, we're going to use the 60 FPS to get that smooth slow-mo. So that's what we're going to do here. So we can go on here and we're going to drag this clip in. And as you can see, it's a bit big for our project here. So what's the deal here? Well, that's because our frame start is at 1. That's okay. But we're at 250 frames. So that's like, I don't know, 10 seconds, I guess? No. 4 seconds. So we can change that. So we're going to do 15,000. So that's about 10 minutes, a little bit over 10 minutes. You can always use a calculator to figure out exactly. But that's 5 minutes. What? Oh, yeah, that's right, because I'm at 60 frames per second. I did a test on this before, and it was 24 frames. So you have to do the math by calculating what's the frame rate in your project. So we got to do 24, and you'll see that's 10 minutes now, because it's counting the frames. So now we got that set. And as you can see, the audio is desynced, but that's okay because we're not using the footage with sound. We're actually going to delete that. But before we go ahead with that, because this is all about setting up your Blender file or your Blender project to be ready for more projects soon to come. So we're not done here, but I just want to demonstrate that about how important it is about your FPS and setting your frame and start and so on. So now we scroll down to output, and you want to set where you want your rendered files to end up. So I already have it selected previously, so that's where it's going to go. But we're not rendering PNGs. We're video editors. We want videos. So what you want to do is select this option here, open up the encoding tab, and then go to this option here for MP4, H.264, and I like to use this setting. Because if you use this setting, it's going to be a huge file size and it's going to take a really long time for it to render. But this is a little bit better than doing this option. It's a smaller file size, but to the human eye, it looks the same. All right, so everything's good there. And make sure you select your audio because you don't want a silent film. And some people do AAC. I do Vorbius. And all the default settings are okay. So there you go. And we're all set there. So the problem is, as you can see, I play it. It plays fine. We're going to delete this audio because it's just wind blowing into the mic. It's fine, you know. It's a little choppy. You can see up here is the frame rate. But when we start to scrub, you can see it struggle a little bit. So there's a few settings that you need to change here. So the first one is your proxy and cache. So we want to strip the cache and then set our proxy settings to be 50% and rebuild. All right, so we already did this. That's why we get this error, because I did this in a previous test run. And I can show you where that's been already edited, because what it does is it makes JPEG files for every frame. So instead of your GPU every single time you play through renders new frames, it will just reuse the ones that's already been made. So it makes it as an AVI. So this will add some space on your project drive, but to me, it's worth it because let's say you have an hour-long video that you need to edit, then scrubbing will be way easier. But the problem is it's still being choppy. So how do we fix that? Well, we open up our view sidebar and then view again, and then proxy render size, and then we want to do 50%. Prefetch frames is a bit buggy in my opinion, so I usually keep that unchecked. But as you can see, it's relatively smooth. You do see a drop in quality, but that's just the preview, so it's not going to affect the final render, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so now there's some other settings that we have to do. So down here under playback, we want AV sync on, we want audio scrubbing checked, we want follow playhead, and that's pretty much it. So now everything will be synced, and as you can see, it's like a bit in slow motion because we're playing back in 24 frames per second, and you can see like the Sony camera struggling with audio. So I want to talk about like basic editing. I'm not going to make a full-blown video like editing a full video because that would be a really long time, and we don't have time to do that because this is going to be just the basics for the tutorial. I'm just teaching you how to set everything up. But now you're probably thinking, well, I don't want to set up my settings every single time because the settings is saved to the project file. Well, that's one cool trick that you can do is you can go to File, you can go to Defaults and Save Startup File and click Confirm. Now, every time I load it, it will be opening up to this. So we probably want to go back to this right here and then save the startup file. But you get the idea. It will load all these settings just so that way you don't have to do it every single time. So it saves some time and money probably if you're working on a paid project. So that's all set here. But let me tell you or teach you some of the key binds to cut and stuff. So K is to cut. I don't know why it's that way, but it is. You can always change your binds later. And you have to have the file selected. But let's say we want to do, let's say, a transition. So you want to select the file and hit G, and this will freely move your file. And since we have made proxies for it, it's really easy to have it overlay. If you did this without adding the proxy, it'll be really choppy. So we can add an overlay. And let's say you want to do a simple transition. So you want to click the first one, shift click the other one, and then go to Add and Transition. And right now they have cross, and there you go. And then you can change the settings over here, you know, of how you like to do it and stuff. And that's all your settings. I could get really into the nitty-gritty of all these settings, but this is just a quick brush over just to get you started. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, or you want me to teach you a specific thing, like how to do this in Blender, then I will make a video. So make sure you're subscribed. And yeah, so let's continue on with the tutorial. All right, so let's delete that. X. So if you want to delete something, you select the item and you hit X, and it will ask you to confirm, and then you click with your mouse. And then that's how you delete an object. G again to move it around. So we want to hit 0 on the frame rate. And let's say we want to add some sound. So let me go back here. And now, like I said before, it's going to be desynced, so we'll delete that project. So this is where you can edit your sound. So if I want to match music, let's say this is a sound file. If I want to match songs or videos I edit to the song, I usually display waveform. Also, there's mono. So let's say you have a mic with a mixer input that has 2 inputs, and your mic is on the left channel. Just click that box when you select the not the waveform, but the audio file there, and then it'll display it here. But let's say this is synced, right? It's not because it's on different frame rates, but let's just say for a tutorial sake, it's synced, right? And you want this all together. So what you can do is you can do B to box select if you really want to do that, or you can just click with your left mouse and just drag it. And if you do Control G, it makes it into a meta strip. And I really like this because sometimes when I'm recording, it's like gaming videos and I have different channels, audio channels, which by the way, unfortunately, this version of OBS, unfortunately, this version of Blender doesn't have support for multiple audio paths when you import a project or a file. So you would have to extract it separately. There's many different ways you can do that. If you guys want me to cover that in a future tutorial, let me know. But basically, if you want to sync everything together without any issues, but you know, if you're doing some edits and stuff, you don't want to move things around and have it desync, this is the best option, just to group everything together. So let's say you want to edit the sound, but you don't want to ungroup it and make a mess on your timeline. So if you hit tab, you get this window here, and you can just change it. So you can change the pitch or the audio settings. As you can see, that's too loud. And hit tab again, and the effect is applied. So you might have a bunch of these kind of strips all over the place, you know, like one here and so forth. And as you can see, it's kind of choppy because we don't have the preview rendered. And that's the cool thing is you can, let me clean this up here. You can have the same, like, you can render the preview as the whole thing here. So what we want to do is proxy settings, select 50%, rebuild. And now it's all synced. And yeah, so there you go. So I think that's the basics in terms of, you know, editing and stuff like that. Yeah, and also, like, if there's something that you want to do in particular and you don't remember the keybind, they're all here. You just right click and then you can add it there. Another thing too is, let's say you want to transform this. You can't really do that in here. Yeah, you can just mirror it and whatnot and crop, but the settings are very basic. So sometimes, like some video editors, you can go into the properties and change the or transform the clip. So what you need to do in order to do that is actually go to add and an effect strip and then transform. And then this is where you edit all the settings and everything. So you can have it go left and right, up and down. You can scale it or uniform scale, so you can zoom in and zoom out. While we're here, I want to show you a really cool feature I really like for animating and masking and stuff like that. So what I like about this feature is, let's say you want to animate zooming in and zooming out. And these little dots here, you probably notice, are actually where you can set up your keybinds. This is where you can set up your keyframes. So you just select these. But the problem is, you know, the tedious task or the process of, you know, selecting, you know, moving it a little bit, animating, right? And then remembering to insert the new keyframe and doing that 1,000 more times. But Blender has a quick solution for that. This button right here will automatically record your movements. So you can do, move it a little bit, and then move it a little bit, oh, that's too much, and move it a little bit. So play around with that. It might animate a little bit weird, but once you get enough practice in, it's pretty good. Also, let's check out the other effects. So we have to select it first, of course. Add effect strip, and we can do speed control. So you can do speed ramping. By the way, it doesn't automatically set the pitch for the audio, so you have to like mess with the pitch settings. Which how you do that is you hit tab, open this up, and then change the pitch. Change the pitch right here, and then you can have it match the speed of the video. So you have to play it by ear. So there's different settings here. You can multiply the speed or what the speed factor is. So we have the pitch high, but there's not enough clips, so it just ends right there. So yeah, you can play around with that. And again, I'm just brushing over all these settings here or these effect strips. And I think that's everything here. So we got to select that again. And there's multicam selector, so it's great for multiple point perspectives and stuff. And yeah, so or you can transform, move, G. Hey guys, Future Dylan here. So I actually forgot to put this part in. So this is about adding text to your project. So how you do that is I'm going to delete this one. And what you do is on add text. But the problem is you don't see it. You just see that, which is no big deal. But what if you want to select your font? So unfortunately, the only way to do that is actually go into your file system. You just look up, on Windows, like how to find my fonts folder and so forth. And you can do the same with Mac or Linux. So we can select one here. And now we have a text right there. And then this is where you can change how high, how big it is. And yeah, there you go. So enjoy the rest of the video. All right, another dumb thing I forgot is you'll notice here that the Blender project has like this little symbol here. I forgot what it's called at the top of my head. So what that means is your project isn't saved. Blender does have a nice autosave feature, and it works unlike Premiere Pro. So what you can do is to save your project is just Control S, which I think it's self-explanatory. And if you haven't saved the project yet, then when you do Control S, it will basically ask you where to save that blend file. Pretty self-explanatory. I probably missed it because I didn't think anything of it because it's so natural for me to do it. And if you're editing video, it's the same thing with any other editing program. So just want to put that in. Enjoy the rest of the video again. All right, I hope I covered everything. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, like it, and comment below of what you guys want me to cover. I want to, listen to you guys and, do some videos to your specific needs and these different free programs. Or if there's a free program that you guys want me to cover that's available on Linux, let me know. I'll look into it and see what I can do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys want to know what equipment I use for recording my audio or what my PC hardware is, then go ahead and check out my website. I have everything listed on there. And see you guys next time.